along to the raids. It all looks good on television. The cops and the DAs are doing their jobs, arresting the scum of the world, pleasing an unwary public. The press will often cover dramatic testimony while rarely printing any coverage that rebuts dramatic testimony. That's why we may seem guilty on television and in the newspapers. The press regularly reports what the rats say, but rarely reports the cross-examination that exposes the inaccuracies of informant testimony with the same energy. After so many unsuccessful government witnesses on the stand, the press began to smell something funny. One television reporter named Mike O'Connor filed a two-part report on the trial for KTVU in Oakland, showing how vulnerable any organization could be if the government went after it and indicted it on RICO. When the government rested their case after having worked through dozens of witnesses, I was set to testify. At first, our lawyers did not want me to. Criminal lawyers rarely want their clients to ever take the stand. Kent Russell and Frank Mangan, however, knew I wanted to testify all along. Unlike the government witnesses, I would address the jury with an honest and straightforward approach. I held firm. Buck, yes, I'm taking the stand. Our lawyers, some of whom were ex-prosecutors, sat me in a room and grilled me and prepared me until I was ready for any question the government could possibly ask. The tension mounted in our defense team, but nothing was going to stop me from going up there and speaking the truth. Our defense team was upset. They felt the government had a weak case, and I might only jeopardize things by going on the stand. On the stand, I was questioned by my lawyer, attorneys representing my co-defendants, and of course, the government's prosecutors. A lot of my testimony was based on my personal history, going back to when I was 18 years old, having founded the Oakland chapter of the club. I denied that the Hells Angels had a policy of criminal activity. I stressed that we were more of a club and less of a gang. We liked to ride motorcycles together, I kept repeating. After 5 days, I walked off the stand, and our team realized the show was over. Following my testimony, we never even waged a defense. We veered right into closing arguments. It was now all up to the jury. Some of the final arguments got pretty tricky and far out because the technicalities of RICO were so confusing. All 18 lawyers gave a final statement, which made it difficult to keep the jury's interest. When it was Kent Russell's turn, he had designed this huge board detailing the supposed drug activities between Sharon and me and a pair of informants. He used a pretty office assistant to flip the charts like an attractive television game show hostess. By the end, we demonstrated 7 conflicting dope deals with 7 different stories that nobody could have believed ever happened. After the arguments were heard, the jury was sequestered until it reached a verdict. It wasn't a lily-white jury by any means. They never seemed to get angry with us. In fact, over the long trial, we all became like a big family. As Hell's Angels, we behaved relatively well, which contradicted what the jury was supposed to feel inside of a bulletproof courtroom. The jury's body language, day in and day out, convinced us that they didn't see us as the monsters we had been built up to be. In late June of 1980, the jury informed the judge that they were at an impasse in reaching several verdicts. The judge conferred with the lawyers before the other in-custodies and I arrived. The judge wanted to let the jury go. Russell and the team were caught up in a stressful situation. Nobody wanted to repeat this year-long trial ordeal, and usually in criminal law, a defense attorney will advise his client that a hung jury can be a positive thing. Without me there to quarterback a decision, Russell and Mangan were in a bind. They asked the judge to send the jury back into deliberations, to the horror of the other defense lawyers. The judge instructed the jury to keep trying. The judge told the jury they couldn't find me not guilty of the non-RICO crimes unless they found everybody else not guilty as well. The jury came back and acquitted Sharon, Ron Elledge, and me on the RICO charges, with a hung jury on the predicate acts. So the judge instructed the jury to X out the not guilties on the verdict form for Sharon and me. There were no major racketeering charges levied against us by the jury. The government wouldn't release me right away. Because of the hung jury, they wanted to retry me along with another set of defendants during round 2. Then they said they would release me if I signed a non-association with the club. Once again, I refused. The July 2nd, while I awaited release, Russell spoke to the press. No angels have been found guilty of being racketeers. The Hells Angels Motorcycle Club has been vindicated. The government failed to prove the club itself is an illegal enterprise. Conspiracy is easy to prove, continued Russell, and the government failed to do it after 2 years of investigation, millions of dollars, and buying witnesses that we prove lied on the stand. The legal bills hit both sides hard. Defending ourselves cost us a total of between $1 million and $2 million, while the government spent closer to $3 million to $5 million to prosecute us. At one point I told them if they gave us the $5 million, the Hells Angels would be good as a group of Christian Boy Scouts and they would never hear from us again. At the time, 1979, we were the largest defendant case in the history of the federal government and also the longest RICO criminal trial. The whole ordeal lasted over a year. We were arrested in June of 1979. The jury was seated in October, and the verdict was delivered in July of 1980. They changed the indictment 3 times, and the trial lasted 9.5 months. The prosecution was pissed off and wanted to go for round 2. We staged a press conference to protest the cost and time of this RICO fiasco. 8 angels were left in jail for the second case, but rather than retry me, they dismissed the predicate acts against me. But Hells Angels Bert Stephenson, Alan Pizarro, Manuel Rubino, and Ron Elledge were eventually fined and jailed on mostly weapons charges after a smaller second trial. Although I was let go in August of 1980, round 2 was another big waste of time and money. I probably should never have been included in the original case. As it turned out, they added me in as the guy in the forefront, the guy they wanted to convict. The government gambled. They thought we'd all scatter and rat on each other, which is what had happened in many prior RICO cases that they had prosecuted. Bringing Sharon and myself into the case, especially when we were both found not guilty, helped the rest of the co-defendants. After acquittal, I went down to the DMV and picked up a temporary driver's license. I didn't want to take any more chances and get pulled over for anything. Here I'd been showcased as the coolest motorcyclist in the country, and I didn't even have a driver's license. The news media filmed me riding away on my bike, a free man with a license. On my first night out of jail, Willie Nelson was playing a big show at the Oakland Coliseum. Deacon and Fu were promoting the show through their own Magoo Productions. The entire club was there. I wore a big cowboy hat and drank from a small whiskey bottle as Willie dedicated Whiskey River to Sharon and me. Willie made no bones to the reporters that he was my friend and told the press he was happy to see me finally out of jail. A few months after the whole thing, the news media had another chance to cover the Hells Angels when I was invited to a San Francisco restaurant to address a criminal trial lawyer. Criminal Trial Lawyers Association. Normally, the group held luncheons featuring prominent judges or lawyers as guest speakers. I brought Cisco, Deacon, Fu, Mike, and Sharon along for lunch. When we got there was a full house and the press was there en masse. One lawyer said, "We haven't had a turnout like this since F. Lee Bailey came." Somebody asked me about the recruitment process for new Hells Angels. "We don't recruit," I answered. "We recognize. When we see somebody that's us, then they become us." I spoke to that group of lunchtime lawyers in their coats and ties about RICO. I warned them that the government is never above spreading lies about their targets. The government gave us a new lease on life by charging us. They united us, and they looked like fools trying to invent all sorts of conspiracies. Their lies just didn't work. Although we beat the case, RICO took its toll on the Hells Angels MC. During the trial, we lost over 50 members in California alone. Members who didn't understand the federal statutes became intimidated, fearing that if they stayed in the club, they might be next on the prosecutor's list. Anybody who quit the club during RICO was, in my book, a disloyal, no-good chicken shit, and not a true brother. I refuse to have anything to do with them if they quit. The door swings 2 ways. You can quit the club honorably, or you can get kicked out dishonorably. The club did let members quit and walk away, but in my eyes, every one of those guys who quit then should have been kicked out. As long as loyal friends like Johnny Angel and Big Al Perry that
Mind you on this, innit?
One is too damn many. Assholes like Anthony Tatum and George Baby Huey Weathern have ratted on the club and written books about it, which really burns my ass. Jim Brandes, the Oakland member who lit the Rico fuse, turned out to be a rat who informed on the club for a few years. When he was finally exposed, Jim hung himself in his cell the night before he was sentenced, rather than go back to prison as an informant. Both Weathern and Tate were inducted into the Witness Protection Program. According to what mafia informants have told me, as a protected witness, you're safe as milk until the cops get tired of babysitting you. Then it's good luck, buck off, and go fend for yourself. After shooting his buddy Zorro in the early 70s, George Weathern left the Oakland Hells Angels and moved his wife and kids 100 miles away to the small northern California town of Ukiah. Even after he left the club, Weathern continued to be a thorn in my side. I had criminal battles of my own to fight. I was in the soup up to my neck. Why did I waste time trying to keep George's ass out of the joint? What else could possibly go down? Enter Whispering Bill. When Weathern left Oakland in 1972, there was a member named Bill Pfeiffer, better known in the club as Whispering Bill. Bill had been in the Richmond Club before transferring to Oakland and was diagnosed with throat cancer that was so advanced he knew he was going to die soon. Whispering Bill dealt drugs to a guy who owned a large diesel truck, and according to the police reports, the guy owed Bill a huge wad of dough. So the two of them hatched a plan to blow up the diesel truck and
Ah, it's pretty here, isn't it?
Lovely, isn't it?
I could do with sun coming out. Have you got heated grips on yours? Yeah. It corners pretty well, actually. I wasn't expecting it to handle as well as that in those little twisties back there. It seems to do all right, doesn't it?
It goes like crazy. She's got a split personality, I'm sure she has.
Not even know where we're at. Where are we?
Black Mountains.
Black Mountain, right.
If you watch Top Gear, you'll recognise this road.
Oh, really? Right.
They've got off from up here and further down.
Off Top Gear?
Yeah. They do a lot of filming up here.
Oh, okay. They never do bikes on Top Gear, do they? It's a shame, really. I think Clarkson and into them, is he? Oh, you mean recent Top Gear or old Top Gear?
Old.
Old Top Gear, yeah.
Yeah, this is one of the favourite roads.
Yeah, I mean, I thought of those when it got a bit like few twisties there. I thought I was going to struggle on that, but yeah, it was fine. It was all right. You know, I've never ridden anything like that, so I don't really know what the handle like. I think actually, I tell a lie. I rode a Honda Shadow, I think.
This style of bike handles like crap normally.
Yeah, well, that's what I thought.
This goes around the corner like crazy.
Yeah, it seems to. Didn't have a problem with it. I mean, you won't be able to crank it quite as far over, but I mean, it didn't seem to have any problems. Different style of ride, isn't it, really? Have you always been into this style of bike? Or?
It's only my second bike.
Oh, it's only your second bike, right? What was your first one?
Honda Shadow.
All right, Honda Shadow, yeah. I rode something similar. I think that's the one bike that I rode. It was something similar to Honda Shadow when I was abroad once, and they told me don't use the front brake, right? I can't remember what it was, and I thought I'd been riding bikes for at the time about 5 years, and I thought bollocks to that. I knew what I'm doing. Hit the front brake, and it went whoa. Yeah, they're not great front brakes on some of those. What?
Higher bike.
Yeah, it was a higher bike. I can't remember what it was called now. It was a similar thing to this on the Shadow. I don't think it was the exact same one, but it was one of these, you know, with like the front brake and a tiny wheel at the front and a big fuck off one at the back.
Yeah, there's loads of them around.
I got to take it to Honda.
The only thing with this, it chews back tyres.
Oh, does it?
Oh, that's my 5th set in a year.
5th set in a year? Oh my god.
I'm doing 24,000 a year.
Alright, okay, so you are racking up some miles, but that's still a lot.
Yeah.
And what? It's a big fat rear as well, isn't it? What are these? What was it costing you for one?
It's about 206, 207.
All right, oh, it's about the same as mine. Yeah, I've got an extra problem, haven't I? I've got more to pay. I need two front ones now, to be honest.
Yeah, if I said something like that.
I mean, that's the other problem with this. I have to go to a Yamaha specific dealer